Hello and welcome back to the podcast Finding Light with me, Brad Carr. Today I'm going to talk to you about something that I feel incredibly passionately and deeply about, and that is the role of perfectionism in creativity and life in general. I guess it's all interlinkable and interchangeable, so you can listen to this if you're a creative person, you can listen to this if you're another person, a non-creative person, whatever that might mean. It's all, transferable. So perfectionism, I believe, is the greatest killer of creativity. Perfectionism is rooted in fear, and fear is one of the emotions, one of the feelings that really keeps us human beings in such a low state of living. Fear, from my experience and from the experience of many people that I've spoken to, is completely crippling and can prevent us from revealing ourselves, from revealing our creative works, from revealing our faces to the world through fear of judgment, through fear of being shamed or ridiculed, fear of those kinds of things kept me crippled for many years, and most notably that was on the football pitch, which is where my shadow traits, my ugly kind of traits that I was perhaps unaware of, would rear their head, and a lot of my anger would come out on the football pitch based upon the fact that I wasn't performing perfectly. So if I misplaced a pass, if I didn't control a ball, then I could quickly lose my head. And not only would I be kind of, visibly angry, but I'd be internally angry as well, where I would judge myself and, ridicule myself in my own self-talk. So perfectionism for me has been present in my life, or rather had been present in my life. It's still kind of there, not so much in my creative works, but definitely in areas within my personal life and relationships. I can catch myself, thinking negative thoughts if I've not performed or said something that I think is the perfect thing to say in such a scenario. So in that sense, perfectionism, the idea of this perfect image of whatever we are trying to portray ourselves, also prevents us from truly expressing our own authenticity. And that comes in physical, facial expressions and verbal expressions, and also in expressing our creative works. So creatively, I'm 10 times less tendent, if that's a word, to be perfect with my creativity now than I probably was towards the first 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 years of my creative venture. I would hold posts back on Instagram and other social media channels through fear of maybe not having the perfect caption to go alongside with that photograph. I think we all have some pressures in our minds to keep up and maybe to compare with other creative people, other photographers, other writers, whatever your passion is. Then I'm sure you've been through a similar process yourself, where you have compared and looked towards maybe people you perceive to be better or higher than you in your creative area, and you perhaps compared your photograph or your caption to something that they are writing. And that's something that I definitely used to do. I don't tend to do it too much anymore. And I think that comes down to the fact that I have identified my way of seeing, my way of thinking, my way of expressing myself. So I found more of that, which enables me to not wish to imitate or, be inspired or copy or whatever it is that I would once have done. Now I feel led by my own truth and my own voice. So that's A. B, I've also been through a huge transformational journey where I have identified many of the weaknesses within myself and many of my perceived flaws, and I've just aired them to the world. So I faced many fears in that sense and just opened myself, and I've realized that through this process that actually the judgment received has not been as bad as I once would have perceived. So the fear in our minds is always much greater than the reality. We are all creative individuals, and these things are so powerful, and they can be the making of us or the breaking of us. We can create such ugly pictures in our minds of what things might be one day, you know, but at the same time there's beauty when we learn to channel these minds as well. So through the journey that I've been on, through opening my heart up and revealing these creative works to the world, I've learned that things aren't as bad as I once believed. So with that in mind, I would like to take a moment just to ask you 3 questions to maybe help you with your own perfectionist tendencies. So what is it that you're holding back from the world through fear of judgment or ridicule from someone outside of yourself? Where do you find yourself still judging others? And what insecurity does this point towards within yourself? How would you feel if you were to die tomorrow having never spoken your words of truth? So I believe that healing our perfectionist, our shadow perfectionist, starts when we heal the relationship with ourselves. So with question 2, when I asked about where do you find yourself still judging others, if we find ourselves constantly judging the external, that means that there is still judgment within ourselves, because we see the world as we see ourselves. So if you are judging somewhere within yourself, then you're going to be trying to keep that part hidden from the world, and you're then controlling what you reveal. So that in turn is going to hold you back. It's very difficult sometimes to see within ourselves our darker shadow traits. So it can be very beneficial to look outward to see what you're projecting out into the world, because that can point to somewhere within ourselves. I hope that that makes sense to you. I also believe that by healing the wounds within ourselves, then we learn to place our own judgment of ourselves, our own opinions of ourselves, and we learn to we learn to place that higher than those opinions and judgments of the people from outside of us. So when we learn to look inward and realize that all of the answers that we're seeking are in here, then we no longer need to look outside for anything. We no longer need any validation from the world, because we have learned to validate ourselves. When we look in and realize that we are everything, then we have no shortcomings. We have nothing missing, because everything is here. We are love, we are light, we are all of the beauty that is out in the world. So we are then no longer going to be likely to look towards somebody else for their approval and their validation. And I mean, that's no easy work to do. It has taken me 6 years, nearly 7 years of continuous work within my journal, introspection work, to identify my own wounds and my own demons, and to get to work on healing them. It is not an easy journey, but for me it's been the most rewarding and the most fulfilling journey that I could have ever undertaken, because it has led to me having such a beautiful self-image now. Although I'm still flawed, as we all are, I no longer focus intently on my flaws, and instead I can see the beauty, and I can see the wholeness within myself. I also know that by searching for our own truths, our own reasons for creating, then we find purpose behind what we are doing, and with a strong enough purpose, that makes anything possible for a human. And then there's almost a desperation inside for us to reveal, to bear our fruits and to let them go into the world. And that makes any kind of judgment and fear of shame irrelevant, completely irrelevant, because you believe in your own cause more so than anything that is outside. Having said all of that, of course, there are some benefits to being a perfectionist, because creative works, pieces of art, wouldn't be what they are without some level of perfectionism, because it's that attention to detail, it's that fine tuning of an image, it's that delicate brushstroke within a painting that not everybody sees, but that buyer would look at and think, wow, there's so much more to this image than first meets the eye. So perfectionism isn't all bad. There are some good to the perfectionist traits that we as artists tend to have. What I'm making this episode for is for people who perhaps allow their perfectionist tendencies to hold them back, because this world needs us to reveal our fruits. It needs us to show our hearts to the world. And if you allow your tendencies to stop you from doing that, then the world is missing out on some real beauty. So this isn't to say that you now just need to start going and taking photographs with your eyes closed, or painting in, colours that don't suit you and your perfect ways. This is just maybe some help to get out of your own way when you find yourself standing in it. I know I have stood in my own way many times in my life so far, and really having this fearlessness about opening up my heart and soul and showing it to the world now has really just been, it's introduced me to so much beauty within my own life, because I've now formed relationships and had conversations with people that I wouldn't otherwise have. And I would not want you to be missing out on the same kind of opportunities because you are filled with fear, and maybe you're still holding on to some memories from difficult times in your childhood, which for me is what led to me being such a perfectionist through my teenage years and my early adult years as well. So also through my many interactions with the natural world, I have been introduced to the imperfect nature of nature. The perfectly imperfect tree, the perfectly imperfect rock that, has been broken and battered, and the tree has been damaged in a storm or a landslide, but there's so much beauty in those imperfections. If anything, it is the imperfections within nature that makes the world so much more beautiful. And I think for myself, I see a lot of myself in those moments of imperfection as well when I'm outdoors in nature. Nature to me is the greatest teacher, and I think that is one of my favourite lessons, that nothing in this world is perfect. So why should I be, and why should you be? If I'm talking to you now, if you're feeling this in your heart, then find some courage. I hope that you have taken some inspiration from this, and you can find the courage to share some more of what you want to share with the world and what you are desperate to share. There's a beautiful quote that is just coming to me now, and it's by Henry David Thoreau. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them. And I don't want to be somebody who goes to my grave with so many words left unspoken inside of my heart, and I'm sure that you don't want to be one of those people either. So, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to find some courage. Courage is the catalyst for the greatest changes in our lives. I know it's in my own moments of courage when I face my fears and I find the bravery to just say, I don't care, have it, open myself up, and it's in those moments that I find the most amount of change and I've seen the most amount of beauty. So there we go. There's my thoughts on perfectionism. I hope you find yourself some courage from this episode. If you enjoyed this podcast episode and hearing some of my thoughts around creativity, around photography and around nature, then I would like to invite you to join my online community, the Finding Light Creative Community, which is a closed Facebook group for individuals like yourself who are curious and full of wonder for the world and are interested in the deeper sides of creativity and maybe the more psychological and spiritual elements to this pursuit. If you're interested, then the link is down below in the bio, and I would invite you to come and apply to join. I don't think I've refused one entry yet, so I'm sure that your entry will be accepted. So I look forward to seeing you over there. And please, please, please engage if you join and get involved in the conversations. Thank you.